Business News Wales, the Wales Business Review with Carwyn Jones.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Wales Business Review, where we discuss the top stories affecting Welsh businesses each week. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Ben Cottam of the FSB. Welcome, Ben.
Hello.
And Robert Lloyd Griffiths of the Institute of Directors.
Good morning.
Welcome, Robert.
Thank you very much.
Well, as we sit here, last night we were all at the Wales Business Awards. Cracking night, I thought, and a really good showcase for Welsh business.
Great night. Lots of really good businesses honoured there, and it was just a pleasure to be there to see so much success. So, yeah, really good night. Really good night. Good buzz as well.
Yeah. Did anyone go on to the party at the end?
I didn't go on to the party, no.
Wise, I think that was wise.
It was great to see the diversity of businesses there. I mean, I think it's probably something we need to do more of, sort of celebrate exactly what we have, because it's not an easy, it's not an easy environment. So I think those sorts of successes we absolutely should celebrate.
Yes, and especially now, where we know things are very uncertain. I mean, Brexit, we know, has been running for a long, long time. Yeah. But, of course, now we're faced with coronavirus and the effect that's having on not just on people, but on businesses as well. We've seen the markets tank a little bit. Are you seeing any effect so far on Welsh businesses in terms of preparations they're taking or concerns they might have? What about the small businesses, Ben?
I think we're seeing concerns to some extent. I think there are concerns about the stability of supply chains, things like that. What we've been saying is that now is the time to plan. Now is the time to put together your business contingency plan, to start to understand your supply chain, to talk to suppliers and to talk to your staff as well. So I think there are concerns out there. There isn't panic though. I mean, and I think, businesses, have been through a period of planning for Brexit no deal. And this looks and feels a little bit familiar in terms of what businesses need to do. It's an unknown quantity. So the best you can do is actually plan and make sure that you've got some resilience within your business. It's difficult to see how it's going to play out though. And it's very fast moving, and I think there is a challenge for us as an organisation informing our members and informing the business community, but also not being seen to contribute to any real concerns where there are none.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one to balance, isn't it? Being able to tell the public what they need to know without making people panic. And we have a tendency as human beings to panic. Yeah. What are you finding, Robert? Yeah,
I'm picking up similar things to what Ben is picking up. I mean, concerns, obviously, but businesses in Wales are really resilient. They've had a number of knocks over recent years. And my experience of our members is they just get on with it. They find a way and they work out of the problems that are presented to them. So, it is concerning, but all we have to go on is what we're seeing on the news and what we're hearing on the radio. And so, we've like Ben, been speaking to our members and saying, look, prepare, plan, look at home working, look at how best you can have business continuity. That's the things that we're trying to get the message across to.
I've heard some people express concern to me about the supply chain. Yeah. Many people, of course, source materials from China. And being able to get those resources, that, of course, has a knock-on effect then on their ability to manufacture, particularly. Any sign of that yet?
Not sign of that yet, but I think it's in people's minds, and I think as the whole issue plays out, we'll see a little bit more of that. And also, people are preparing for maybe self-isolating or not going into work, and if that's the case, there are some businesses that may, for example, I don't know. I spoke to somebody the other day in the nursery, kindergarten sort of arena, and if they close down for a couple of weeks, they've got about 20 or 30 staff to pay, and that's when it begins to have impacts, financial impacts and cash flow. But we'll wait and see. We don't know what the play out's going to be, so I think we're in a wait and see mode.
That obviously is in the background, and of course we had the news this week that Flybe have gone into administration. An important carrier from Cardiff Airport, but fortunately not as dependent on Flybe as, for example, Southampton or Belfast City or indeed Exeter. Flybe have been struggling for a while, haven't they? Yeah. I mean, the mood music hasn't been good for some time, so I suppose not unexpected, although the speed of it perhaps was, and again affected by the coronavirus because people aren't travelling in the same way. These are tough times for the airline industry.
Yeah, I think it's reassuring that Cardiff Airport wasn't as possibly heavily leveraged on Flybe as possibly most people expected or anticipated they would be. However, we've now got a job to fill those routes. Those routes, particularly to near EU destinations, are really important for smaller businesses. Smaller businesses more likely to trade with the EU than other businesses. So we need to find new carriers for those routes, and I know there's some carriers emerging for some of the domestic routes. On a wider point, though, I think there is it reinforces what is already a compelling case for the devolution of APD, air passenger duty, to Wales, to allow the airport and allow Wales to have the levers to develop those international routes. It shows that the airline industry is a fragile industry, and we need strength and depth. And I think there is a really compelling case now in the upcoming budget for the UK government to really give that some serious thought.
I suppose the other issue, Rob, as well, is that with the seeming rejection of the third runway at Heathrow, there is an opportunity for an airport to the west and southwest of Heathrow to pick up some of the slack. And we know Bristol's got its own problems. It's a capacity. Its runway is not as long as Cardiff's. An opportunity there, perhaps, for long haul and to take some of those flights and some of the pressure away from Heathrow.
I think that's a really good opportunity, and I think the Davis Commission a number of years ago looked into some of those opportunities, and there was also a play to actually have more of that type of traffic into Cardiff. I think it's something that down the line we could really look at further. I think the opportunities would be immense. I think the infrastructure potential would be huge. Maybe having a transatlantic terminal and then moving then right through to London on a high-speed train. That was one of the discussions that took place a number of years ago. It may be worthy of investigation further. Could be transformational for the South Wales economy, for the Wales economy as a whole.
Well, since Qatar came in, the cargo being carried has gone from zero to their holds are full at the moment, and that's gone really well. You mentioned the transatlantic route. The big question was always where to fly to from Cardiff. If you go to New York, New York doesn't have a hub. Chicago, Atlanta, but not so much New York. And the reason why Doha works is because so many people use Doha as a hub to fly somewhere else. And that's where the service is.
I think that the Doha, the Qatar route is transformational for Wales. It's really important that we do all we possibly can to support this, and the business community that I speak to are doing so. It's a major opportunity, and we've got to do everything we can to support it. And really, I think an integrated transport infrastructure is hugely important for Wales going forward. And so, all that we can possibly do to give it our support and continue its opportunity, we should be doing.
Well, good news that Logan Air have taken over the Edinburgh route.
Yeah, that's good.
But it may take some time, I suspect, for the other routes because at the moment, airlines are not carrying passenger numbers. They're not looking to expand. There are supply problems with Boeing. The 737s. What happened there? And if you're Ryanair, for example, that's your workhorse. So you're a 737 operator. So it's been tricky there. But there are possibilities. I mean, the Irish routes particularly, I think they'll be filled. Well, I hope so. For my wife's sake, she flies back and forth all the time. They'll be filled pretty quickly.
I think there's a point about us understanding the role that the airport plays. It's a building block in that economic development infrastructure, and so it's less about the routes are important, but we need to understand that that is that's quite central to what we can do to build the economy in Wales. So to be without it, or to see the decline here, is really, really worrying.
But business has got to use it as well.
And
that's the thing, use it or lose it, and support it and back it. It's all well and good to say, well, it's not going here, it's not going there. We've got to get behind it and make sure it happens. Otherwise, it won't.
I mean, one of the questions I was often asked when I was abroad was, do you have an international airport? Now, the fact we could answer yes was helpful not just for Cardiff and South Wales, but for all of Wales. I know people in Flintshire and Anglesey are unlikely to use Cardiff Airport unless they're flying down from Valley, I suppose. But the fact there is an airport in Wales, doesn't matter where it is actually a positive for the whole of Wales. In reality,
sends the right message out.
It does. Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. Hopefully, we'll see some movement on the route side of Cardiff, and it is good to see that the airport has diversified, so that it's not. It's a big chunk of business, but it's not over-dependent as some other airports, unfortunately, have been. And of course, these are very tough times for the Flybe staff. Now, let's move on to some stories that the two of you have chosen. If I could start with you, Ben, first. I asked you to look at a story that you thought was worth highlighting and important. And the one you've chosen is about video learning in schools, about more pupils being taught via a remote link. Tell us a little bit about the story and why you think it's important.
Yeah, well, the story is particularly interesting for those peoples in rural areas, but not exclusively in rural areas, but those peoples in rural areas where access to learning experience will be limited by that. You have smaller class sizes, so there's an opportunity to interact with a larger class size, a larger cohort, but also more access to a wider range of teaching specialisms and subjects. So that's really interesting. And why I was particularly taken by it is the conversation about how we bring experiential learning around industry and careers to schools. So I think this gives a really good opportunity. If we were to roll out and to mainstream video links to school, why would you not get, for instance, an entrepreneur or let's say an owner of a factory, for instance, talking to classes all around Wales about their world, about the world of engineering, for instance, and manufacturing, maybe even, dare I say, a video tour of their facilities. It then just, helps bring, a greater degree of enrichment, but we also have a broader conversation about what careers are available. At the moment, when you look at business links with schools, they're quite dependent on the sorts of businesses you've got in your locality. And, in some areas, that could be, not as diverse as in other areas. I think also, though, if you look at some of the schools in maybe more deprived areas, there again is the opportunity to bring that sort of greater range of experience, that greater understanding of the world of careers, and maybe start to boost aspiration and opportunity for those young people. So I think this is a really interesting story. I think, it needs business, though, to be a part of it. And this is the opportunity with the new curriculum. There is real opportunity for schools to, to be a little bit more inventive in the way that they engage the business community. So I think you have to put that curriculum opportunity together with the technology and then challenge the business community to step up and be a part of this.
Yeah, we're moving to an era now where it doesn't matter where you live. You should, in theory, be able to access the same opportunities when it comes to education. I'm struck here by a comment by Dr. Lewis Price. So Dr. Price is a maths teacher in Llanfyllin High School in North Montgomeryshire there, and what he said was, I see no difference between my video lessons and my traditional lessons. Right. We spend a lot of time moving youngsters around schools, of course, in Wales to study subjects that aren't available in their schools. Yeah. Again, we have the opportunity here, potentially, to offer the broadest education to everybody, regardless of where they are. And I see the Scots have started, because they've started this there. They have communities that are far more remote than ours. And from your perspective, you think this is a game changer?
Yeah, I think it is. And of course, this is the way in which young people are interacting anyway. So it's quite natural to them. If I think about my 12-year-old daughter, I don't think she would see it as particularly odd to be able to learn in this way. We have, a wealth of online learning anyway for professional courses and things like that. We even, courses like accountancy, for instance, a lot of that is being done by video and distance learning now. So I think this is a mainstreaming of something that has been coming down the tracks for a long time. But as I say, I think a real opportunity is for businesses to see it as an opportunity to fill that void that currently exists in business interaction with education. So I think it's really quite exciting.
Robert, from your perspective, anything that keeps the flow of skills going, and anything that provides as much opportunity as possible to as many youngsters as possible across Wales,
hugely important.
That's got to be welcome, isn't it?
Hugely welcome, hugely important. Better skills, and also from our perspective, the Institute directors, better skills in directors as well. Better directors mean a better business. Better business means a better economy. Better economy means a better society. So skills right throughout the whole range of individuals.
I remember growing up in the 70s and having this book where they showed somebody talking down a telephone line to somebody who was on a screen. We marvelled at this. Bear in mind that these were the days when the Allegro was being made and falling apart, and we had a black and white TV with three channels, and here it is now. If I said to you then in the 70s, you can watch TV on your phone, you'd have wondered what I was talking about.
Oh, absolutely. It's like an Uncle Bryn moment, isn't it? Yeah. What's satellite navigation? Oh, amazing.
Well, I say to my kids, I show them rotary phones, which they've never used, of course, and try to explain to them that it was actually illegal to own a phone. To rent a phone.
That's right.
Ben, you wouldn't remember this.
Well, we had computer studies lessons in school years ago.
I did computer studies. Yeah. And I did it in 1983.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I may as well have learned ancient Persian. I can program in BASIC, but that's, but as useful as being able to read ancient hieroglyphics.
Amazing.
Amazing how things have changed. And I remember being told, you've got to do this. This is the way of the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Tomorrow's
was,
world
but
today.
you needed to really keep your hand into
Where the future wants.
Exactly. Cameron said that to Blair. He was the future once.
Wow.
Okay, Rob, if we go on to your story then, you've picked a story about a self-build housing scheme, which is described as a world first. Yeah. So basically a loan scheme where people can get loans to cover most of the outlay in order for them to be able to get a roof over their heads. Something, of course, that's a really difficult issue for so many people, not just in Wales, but beyond. Tell us a bit about the story.
Well, I was really taken with this story because I always love it when something is positioned as a world first for Wales. So really delighted that we're doing this. And it's being financed by Welsh Government, managed by the Development Bank. Plots of land come over and ready. It's a bit like a Brexit, really, isn't it? But over and ready plots of land, planning permissions in place. Builders get 75% loan for the plot and the full amount of the building costs, with repayments only starting when the home is finished. So the loans are repaid free up to 2 years, and they allow people to cover the living costs and building process and then pay what they borrowed, raising mortgage when it's up and running. So, it seems a really neat scheme, really well devised, and again, it's a world first for Wales. And as you say, it's hugely important to stimulate the housing market. Good for builders, good for home owners. It seems to me to be a win-win opportunity, and I'm sure that it'll go from strength to strength.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? You've got people in their 20s and 30s, they're in good, secure, well-paid jobs, and they can't get a mortgage. I know somebody who could only get a mortgage if their parents provided them with a guarantee, and when I was in my 20s, you could almost buy them off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's the way things have gone. That reaction to what happened in 2008 is still there, and it's still quite extreme, isn't it?
It's good that we're having this conversation about diversity of housing supply, because you absolutely need all those different modes available to you. I think I met an FSB member a couple of years ago who was entering into a self-build market, and what she said was the real problem is the planning system and its ability to get its head around this sort of new type of development. So what's really interesting about this is that's been worked into this scheme. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I hope it gets pick up. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's exciting that it's something that's been pushed ahead in Wales. But
only 10% of homes in the UK are self-builds. We're at the bottom of the pile. So, we need to be improving, increasing and becoming better at this. So that's why I found it hugely impressive.
One of the figures that strikes me from this story is that the average self-build house in the UK costs about 75% of its final value because there are no developer profits. So you're talking about obviously something that's far cheaper as well.
Yeah.
And people being able to access the same house at a much lower cost.
Ticks a lot of boxes.
It does. You had another story as well, Robert, that you wanted just to refer to, and that's the Starling Bank opening.
Yeah.
Third UK office, 400 jobs being created in Cardiff. What makes this particularly stand out for you?
Well, 400 jobs is really important. I think it's also an opportunity to demonstrate that for professional services, we are going some here in Wales. I think it's a good news story. I'll be there at the opening on Monday evening. And it just demonstrates that there are opportunities happening around a range of things at the moment, which are perhaps a little bit negative in the press. So, I'm encouraged by this. It's going to allow the growth of its business in personal banking, and it's growing its customer base as well. They've got 1.3 million accounts, and that's going to increase. And of course, Welsh tech sector is one of the fastest growing digital economies outside of London, and it continues to grow. So this is part of that growth strategy, and it demonstrates to others, as I hope it will, that they can come here, set up, do well, and we've got the right skills, the right enthusiasm and drive to make these things happen.
If we have the right skills, then it must be tempting for any business to relocate from, say, London, where fixed costs are so high.
Yeah.
When they come to Cardiff, and in the digital age, you don't have to be physically on site to be able to operate in the market. I mean, it struck me at New York Stock Exchange. I mean, for those of you who've seen trading places, the old style stock exchange, lots of people shouting.
Yeah.
It's a load of computers.
Yeah, absolutely.
The algorithms run it, and there are a few people there who just keep a look at the screens.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. And you could be anywhere, really, and trade on it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be physically there.
Well, I think it's really important that when these banks locate in Wales, that they tell others, and others pick up the messages that they're doing well, they're coming here. And I want businesses to prick up their ears and think, do you know what, I could do that too. That's really important for me. And so I think it's really all about getting the message across, communicating to others that we have an opportunity here in Wales, and then getting some more down here. That's key.
The challenge is how you make this sticky, how you make this investment sticky, and how we attract the sort of higher end of the skill set that's available for financial and professional services. And I think that's why this is quite important. I think the other thing that really interests me is that these are, the challenger banks are starting to discover Wales, and this is agitation. This is, this is sort of challenge within the marketplace, and it's really interesting that some of these newer names, maybe not new names, but newer names, are really starting to discover Wales. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. It's really positive news.
The start of something new, hopefully.
Well, it's all part of the narrative, isn't it?
Yes.
It's all part of the Wales narrative. It's how we project ourselves to the wider world, UK, put ourselves on the map.
And you're right to use the word sticky, Ben, because one of the biggest influences on an investment decision for a business that I found is they will look to see if there's somebody like them already there, somebody who's been successful and can provide a pool of talent that everybody can fish out of. Okay, let's move on then to a story that I've noticed on Business News Wales this week, and it's to do with the success of Hydro Industries. Hydro are based further west. They've secured a contract of up to £200 million to help to safeguard one of the world's most fragile and precious ecosystems in the Red Sea. And I like this story for several reasons. First of all, Welsh company doing well.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. But it shows that we're at the cutting edge of technology when it comes to preserving the environment when that environment is challenged by an industry that is in itself difficult to control as far as the environment's concerned. And what I mean by that is they've won the contract to service a water treatment, to build a water treatment plant, rather, to service an oil terminal on the Red Sea coast in Egypt. And their role is to make sure that all the water that goes back into the Red Sea is up to the strictest environmental standards. Yeah. So it's an issue that touches on climate change, an issue that touches on the environment. It's an issue that affects so many, everywhere around the world, really. It's not specific. And again, an example of a Welsh business doing very well and being right at the forefront of a new technology.
Yeah. I think the notion that this company in Welsh specialism is addressing some of the big environmental challenges. Where let's be honest about that. Given the scale of the challenge, this is going to be a big marketplace. Those businesses that can help to address some of those questions that regions of the world are facing are going to get real competitive advantage. So it's a win-win. And I think it needs a little bit of lifting up, needs a little bit of publicising to make sure that people are aware that there is Welsh expertise which is starting to address some of these challenges. I remember meeting a company called a gentleman who owned a company called Syntec based in Newport, which again, is an engineering company which is helping underpin the pyramids in Egypt and is looking at how to preserve rail infrastructure in India. So you've got Welsh expertise, which is answering these questions for economies all around the world. And I think we probably need to do a little bit more flag waving about that.
Well, it is a real problem, isn't it, Robert? I mean, we tend to hide our light under a bushel sometimes. If you ask the public out there, what happens in Wales? What do we make in Wales? Yeah. Most of them wouldn't be able to tell you. If I said to people, we're world leaders in semiconductors, we're world leaders in insurance, they'd be quite surprised at that, which is why we need to be able to get the message across.
We need goodwill ambassadors. I mean, the story you highlight, it's a win-win-win-win situation. It's a responsible business. It's doing great work. It's on the world stage. But I've always thought that that's part of the job that we in the business organisations try and do constantly. You try and do it when you're out and about. You talk up businesses. I talk about businesses. Ben does, and other colleagues do as well. We've got to do more of it. I always thought it'd be a good idea if we had a minister for good news within the government. Perhaps that's something that we can think of. But we've got to get a bit more cute about getting our message across, communicating the opportunities and the positive things. We've talked about many positives today already. We ought to do it a lot more and a lot better and a lot louder.
And there are opportunities for us, aren't there? I mean, we led the world when it came to coal and steel production, both of which in many ways wreck the environment. So why not be at the forefront of the work to restore the environment? And as far as hydro are concerned, an important part of what they will be doing is to deal with hydrocarbons, deal with heavy metals, deal with boron, for example, and then return that as clean water to the sea. Having been the cradle of the Industrial Revolution, why not become the cradle of the new industries that will deal with the aftermath?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important, as I said, let's bang the drum loudly.
Yeah, and we've got COP26 coming up towards the end of the year, and this is part of it. It's not just about effect; it's about the solution as well. So why not develop a business narrative about, well, actually, how can Welsh business start to address some of these challenges, rather than it being seen as how will business deal with the very significant problem,
opportunity.
But how do we answer those questions?
But the important thing is, if you asked 99 people in the street what COP26 was, I don't think they'd have a clue what it is. And so what they've got to do is get the message across really more effectively as well, communicate it widely, and why it's important, and how businesses in Wales can play their part in making such a difference.
Yeah, and I think it's important to present the challenges of climate change as something that can be dealt with in a positive way, rather than a burden.
Yeah,
there are opportunities for businesses from the green economy that previously weren't there. In the car industry, the big race now is to make a real breakthrough when it comes to battery technology. It's improving quickly, but still the range isn't quite, apart from some of the sort of high-end cars, the range isn't quite there unless you're in a city. And they know that there's a tremendous race to get to the point where, the holy grail is if you can find a way of having a portable battery, you can physically take out of the car and exchange for a charged battery in a garage.
Sure.
So you don't have to charge it up for hours or 20 minutes on the motorway. And they know that's the holy grail for them. And if they get to that point, that's a game changer for the motor industry and a real challenge for the national grid.
and I went to the launch of the Hydrogen Association recently. Hydrogen batteries for cars as well. And
Invented in Wales.
Pardon?
Invented in Wales.
Invented in Wales. Phenomenal opportunities, and they're doing great work. And as I said before, always looking for the opportunity where it's a Wales first, and what they're doing is a Wales first as well.
Again, it's all about telling people, isn't it? One of the things I learned in politics, you can do whatever you want, but if nobody knows you're doing it, they think you're doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
And being able to, last night with the Wales Business Awards, what we see on Business News Wales, these are great opportunities to inform not just the business community but the public about what we do in Wales. That we're not, living in a perpetual R.S. Thomas poem. Yeah. That we've got a real future, and there's a sense of dynamism amongst our younger people, particularly that wasn't there when I was their age.
No.
It's the world has changed and they've changed with it, and I think it's exciting for us to be able to tap into some of the ideas that they have.
And people want to hear good news stories at the moment. We need to do more of it, as you say.
I think we need a better collaborative effort in Wales. To do this. FSB, IoD, the chambers. We exist. Not just to support our own members, but also to lift up some of these stories. But I think we aren't as joined up as we possibly need to be, or as we possibly could be, as a community of organisations, as a business community, to start to tell these stories, but also to address some of the challenges. So I think there's a lesson to be learned for us to be a little bit smarter in the way that we join up. But there is no shortage of good stories out there, within the Welsh business community. I see them every single day. And, we've got our business awards next week. We'll be celebrating some of that. So, but you mentioned it earlier. We do hide our light a bit. It's what we traditionally do. So we've got to get out of that.
We've got about 250,000 businesses in Wales, each with a story to tell, and a lot of good news out there.
Well, we've dealt with a lot of issues there that are important to the business community, but of course there's one big issue we haven't talked about yet. As we sit here now, tomorrow, of course, Wales are in Twickenham. Now, bear in mind, I'm going to ask you now about your prediction, and there'll be some people who will be listening to this podcast after the game is finished.
Yeah.
So, Robert, come on, stick your neck out.
I will stick my neck out. I've been to Twickenham twice, and I've never seen Wales defeated, and I don't want to see it again.
Right, well, we've got to get you there.
Got to get me there.
Definitely.
Yeah,
under all
I'll be there. I am the official mascot. They never lose when I'm there.
I've had the same with the Cardiff Devils. I've seen ice hockey maybe 9 or 10 times. I've never seen them lose.
There you are. You
to get wheeled out for important games.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ben, come on. What's the FSB's view on this?
The FSB's view. I'm not on the predictions game for very good reason. However, I think there are two teams on really good form, some really interesting developments. I'm particularly interested to see what Wayne Pivac's doing with the team. I have a hunch, I have a gut feeling for no other reason than blind patriotism that Wales will sneak a win, but it'll be a sneak. I think it's going to be very, very closely fought.
Come on, Carwyn.
I think we can win tomorrow.
Yes.
Notice the word "can" there.
Yeah.
I think we can win. If we get our act together, I think at the moment we look like a team that's trying to play a new style.
Yeah.
Isn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
Not quite. The players are there to do it, but it's still a bit of a learning process. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think we can do it, and we underestimate the value sometimes of sport for Wales, and the Euros was so important for us. I mean, a lot of people now think that the name of the country is Wales Gareth Bale.
Yeah, I think
Wales Gareth Bale to people.
If you'll pardon the pun, the bounce is disproportionate in Wales because of the community we are, and we do see, within the business community, we do see a real sort of surge in positivity when Wales does well. So I think we've got that link between, whether it be football or rugby, our national squads and the economy. And I think that's just down to the size. And I think that's a real benefit.
We will wait and see. And we will know the result, of course, tomorrow evening. There will be some of you who know it already because you're listening to this podcast after the game has been played. But could I give my thanks then to you, Ben?
Thanks very much.
And to you, Robert, for joining us as our first guests on this very first weekly business review. It's been great to talk about so many of the major issues affecting Welsh business with you. And so from me, thank you for listening to Weekly Business Review here at Business News Wales, and have a good week.
Business News Wales, the Wales Business Review with Carwyn Jones.